Hello, people of the internet. Cosmic Adults here once again, and we're already kind of in the mood for this topic or this thing we want to discuss. And Mercedes, you brought this topic up, so maybe you can introduce this topic for the listeners out there.
I can. But also in this moment, I'm realizing I forgot to do my homework and I could have been doing it right now, but I didn't do it. So that'll come later. But yeah, so the topic of the day is what do you do when you're alone?
I think it's an amazing topic because people can take it one way, we can spin it in a whole bunch of ways. But you had a very kind of like specific way of explaining it and understanding it, and a real life event. We don't have to bring that event in, obviously, but a real life event kind of like motivated you to bring it
Mhm.
in. And I think it's an amazing topic.
Well, because you know what I do is I take it to the streets.
Exactly.
I take my learning to the streets. I take everything that happens in my life and I ponder it. I'm like, why? Why is this happening? What can I learn? What am I learning? What's the universe teaching me? Um, and one of the things I mean, maybe to toot my own horn a little bit, but it's like the things that I do when I'm alone are, I think, very vastly different from other people. But I get caught up in this, like, in this line of thinking that everyone's the same or everyone is like me. And it's just not true. Um, I read books. I sit and meditate. I mean, yeah, definitely I zone out, watch Netflix, do the whole like thing. Lately I've been flipping between Schitt's Creek and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Have you ever heard of Schitt's Creek? So so funny. Canadian humor actually.
Mm,
Very good show.
sounds good.
Um but yeah, like I don't know, like maybe you can take it away here on what your thoughts are on it because I'm very curious.
Well, the first thing actually that came to my mind was like 12th house stuff, because 12th house is how the signs, like, I'm bringing in astrology here, and the 12th house is how the signs, or, in this case, you are in private, or the person is in private. Let's say if you look at another person's chart. So this is where you can see how the person might be, what they enjoy doing in private time, kind of recovering, resting, even we can say vacation time as well. And there are a bunch of other things that 12th house represents, but in this case is it talks a lot about what the person does in private. So you can actually, look at a natal chart and imagine what the person likes to do. Um, but then it goes into another place of like the ruler of the 12th goes into an house, and that gives another layer to what the person likes to do in privacy, and then aspects to it. And if there are harder aspects, maybe they like to do sketchier things and weird things. But you know,
What would you define as weird?
you know, I think there are a bunch of things we can define as weird. I don't know if I want to specifically, bring them in,
Yeah, but
but
I think
yeah,
the point you're making is like hidden, like these
hidden
things that are hidden,
exactly.
like when no one's watching, who are you? And then ultimately, so this is like kind of where I went with it a bit, and I hope I'm not interrupting you here. But
Mm-mm.
this is kind of where I went with it because you enter this world alone, you live your life. I mean, you have people around you, but that's kind of an illusion. And then you die alone. So the whole time you're actually alone. So it's between you and the creator. So it's kind of like what I think of it like is like if you have a personal trainer and your personal trainer is like, okay, do 20 push-ups. and you're like, well, I'm going to do 18. You're not really like the trainer doesn't care. Like they care in that, they want you to get better and everything like that, but ultimately it's your body that's missing out on those two push-ups, on the extra exercise, on reaching your goals. So it's like, I don't know. I think what you do when you're alone is extremely important because that's between you and the creator. And what's that bond like? Where are you at in your journey of life? I mean, it doesn't even have to be spiritual, but I mean, that's where I would take it.
Hmm. Interesting. I I don't have a lot like to even add to it. It's like a very defining way of putting things. Um, dumbfounded, like no words are
Mm.
coming out. But yeah,
Yeah. So like, let's just, I mean, I think we should take it in a relationship route because I think that's what's coming up for me is like, so like, let's just say you have this person and you're doing actions that are pissing them off. Oh shit. No, I lost my train of thought here.
yeah,
You're doing actions that are like harming them or whatever, or
mm,
like disappointing them, or um you know what you're doing. Everyone knows what they're doing. It's not like a mystery. It's like, but ultimately you're not really harming that other person. It would do you good to be helping that other person and really supporting them and helping them, but ultimately you're harming yourself in harming that other person because you're not looking inside and learning and growing and fixing your own wounds because or healing your own wounds because that's ultimately where these things are going to come from, like why you would, let's say, act out or whatever. You're good.
yeah. I'm totally good. Yeah, you're. I think it seems like you put a lot of like thought into this,
I've been in
and
this one for a while.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you think like people maybe miss opportunities to do good for themselves?
definitely all the time. And you know what the weird thing about this is? I really started. I obviously started thinking about this for a long time ago, but again, something you said today even kind of like hit me in the way you shared something about people, showing up to lives and coming to a live call or something like that. And I think a lot of people literally sabotage, and I used to sabotage myself when I was younger a lot in these situations. There was some sort of opportunity, maybe something great, and a chance to show up in some shape or form. It didn't have to be even big, and then I wouldn't do it because I was afraid what the people would think of me, or I found some other weird excuse in my mind. It usually was about, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough for that stuff, and then I didn't show up for those things, and then
Mm.
took away those opportunities that could have been all sorts of things. And I've seen now, having come through that, and starting to put work into the world, and kind of like helping people, and putting out also these types of webinars and live things, and I constantly see this with kind of like shooting themselves into the foot. Basically, it's like doing the 20 push-ups, like you said, is going to help you, and it's taking you to the next level. And then there's this voice that keeps on like saying like, no, or like find some excuse, I can't do
Yeah.
this for this
Do
reason.
18. Do
Yeah,
18. You're weak.
like And it is, and I see it a lot, and luckily I obviously see the other side of the coin as well, where people are like just like tremendously just I want to change, I want to do this, and I want to make it happen, and they have that finally have that vigilance of like let's do it, let's make it, let's create it. But then sometimes the 12th house comes in again, the private thing, and it is the secret actions that we do, behind the scenes as well. Sometimes, we can say even like the house of self-sabotage. At times, we can attach that meaning to it as well. So you can find a lot there. Um, Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it's taking it in a really neat direction. I am curious about the 12th house because I feel like that's one of, is it the most mysterious?
I think you could say that. I mean, I think it's between the 8th and the 12th, but like the 12th, even like when you start speaking about the 12th house, it's kind of like mysterious and illusional, and there's, all these things that we don't understand about it. And 12th house is the things that we don't really understand. So it's a difficult house to maneuver, navigate, to let's say learn and integrate into your life, and understand about yourself, because it's also a subconscious house. So it's like things we can't see, you know. So if like let's say the things we do alone is the 12th house and the subconscious, and we can't see, if you put these all together, you can see why I even said at the beginning, like there's you know weird things can happen there. People can do some weird crap when they're in private. So, and like you said, like almost like without even knowing that they're doing this thing,
Mhm.
and thus sabotaging their relationships, sabotaging their sometimes their work, you know.
Mhm. I really think that to hone that time of when you're alone is to hone it and master it is one of the key things to life, in my opinion. Um, that's where your true colors are. That's where, you take your socks off and lay on the couch. That's you. you know, that's really the real you. It's not the masks that you put on in front of other people and the things that you try and do to show up, or the things that you're pretending about or to care about or whatever, like you at your job versus you at your in your relationship versus you with your mom versus you with your sister or whatever, right? Like it's really that inner you. And I feel like so many of us are really hiding things. And I think that one of the keys to like mastery or whatever would be like making known the unknown. What is it about you that you don't know? Because the sabotage, that's you wouldn't be doing that if you knew, like if you truly knew and let go, which I think is why it's so important to look.
Yes, definitely. It's just at times it's very hard to look, and because it's subconscious. A lot of the times you get into the pattern, and you don't even understand that you're in that pattern, and then very unfortunately a lot of the times it needs to get you to that suffering part. It's like, why is this happening? Why am I constantly doing this? And then you finally suffered enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll look, and
Do you
make
think
changes.
suffering is like friction? Like to me, it feels like friction, like the good thing against the not good thing, like the magnetic, like maybe not magnetic, more like Velcro.
I would say Velcro is maybe a little bit of like too good of a thing for suffering. But like I can understand your comparison there. Maybe if I think about suffering, it's like my mind goes also like the square and opposition. In astrology, these are like friction. It's like the friction before it turns into a sextile, or it turns into a trine. A more harmonious. There's some sort of friction before that. what you do in the friction, what you do in the kind of velcro part of the experience is what defines also the later part of the harmonious aspect of the trine or the sextile, you know, what you get,
Mhm.
and how you are in that situation.
Yeah. I think there's also a lot to like at some point, at some point, you have to really I think we talked about this a lot, but like at some point, I think it's bringing on new meaning lately. At some point, you have to really take responsibility for who you are and your life. Like at some point, you have to, I mean, well, technically you don't, but you have to initiate yourself. If you want to get the most out of life, and you want to jump in that river of life and you want to flow and you want to go forward and whatever, have everything you've ever dreamed of since you were a child, it's like, man, I don't know, I just feel so sad. I feel sad. I feel like there are a lot of people missing out, and this sabotage theme just seems so big in my life right now.
Hmm.
I feel like I went off track a little bit in my brain there. Like my brain just pivoted me to the sabotage. And like I sabotage myself a lot for sure. But I think like once you've gone in there in your brain and you realize what that sabotage voice is, then you start to recognize when it's speaking and when it's like not you. Like the voice that you want to listen to is the one that's like, do 21 push-ups, do 21, you can do it, you're the best, you've got this. That voice is amazing. The voice that's saying 17, maybe 18, 16, no one's gonna know. Well, you know what, someone's gonna know, you're gonna know.
I think that's the like I want to add a little piece because at times, you know, that voice is like I had it even today because I was like a little bit not a little bit, I was like almost completely, you know, tired, and I was getting into my morning, you know, exercise routine, and every bone in my body, it wasn't even only my mind, was telling like, hey, you need a break, you know, you need to take one day off of this. And I was like, and you know, my kind of like conscious mind was like, no, just like push it through and like, yeah, go at it, which I very often do as well. But you know, if you do that too much, you know, if you listen to that, you know, burnout, it's just like burnout from work, for exercise, or mental or emotional health. And sometimes you
Mhm.
need to listen to that part, like not that it's sabotaging you, but it's kind of like having your best interest is like, you know, hey, you need to take a rest, you know, rest for a little bit and then carry on, because that's a different kind of voice than saying like,
Totally.
you know, you know, don't, you know, nobody's going to know, because that's like a sabotaging voice that is like wanting to scheme and wanting to kind of like get through things
Well,
half-assed, I
it's
guess.
maybe that's where I'm going with this, is like I feel like this is just such a thing to open up of like, what do you do when you're alone? Because
Hmm.
the voice of like, even just saying no one's gonna know, no one's gonna know because you're alone, you're going to know, you're gonna know, and you're gonna beat yourself up for it because you know that you could be doing better. And it doesn't mean that you have to be freaking Jesus Christ 99% of the time, but like, you know that you can be doing better.
I think it's a huge. Um, it's almost like what's the word I'm looking for? Like a no, that's not it. Million words are going through. Um, like a goal post. No, that doesn't feel right. But anyway, like almost like a sign of where you are with yourself. Because if that voice is very loud of, oh, you know, do 18, no one's going to know. But like you said, you are going to know. And if you're forgetting yourself, the most important part of the puzzle, then you actually have a deeper problem of, you know, not having, I would say, enough self-respect,
Mm-hmm.
which can be translated into self-love or self-appreciation. Kind of like bullshitting yourself and mind fucking yourself into, you know, I don't know what's the right word even, but
Some kind of
not good thing,
distortion.
like
Yeah.
distortion, and like wanting to scheme yourself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why do you need to scheme yourself? I'll start to ask, like, what's in it for you, and why do you think so little of yourself that you need to like even scheme yourself?
Mm.
Can't you
And
be in a better, like,
yes.
healthier dialogue with yourself? I think there is a healthier balance there.
Well, the emotion that this resonates, I feel like the most with is shame. And that's like a lot of like self-abandonment, which I think so many people have been abandoned by their parents or felt abandoned or whatever. So it's almost like that pattern of abandoning yourself is like the norm. Yet we're so afraid of being abandoned and being alone and, whatever.
It's wild. I think you nailed one of the biggest problems. Let's say I focus on my work, and I think it's the almost like the underlying foundation of my whatever I do in the world, like help people be free. But yes, you know, having that presence with yourself is crucially important, and I want to unpack it a little bit because this is important. And for a lot of people, they didn't have it, they didn't have the parents to do it, the parents actually couldn't do it for themselves. So if the parents weren't given that by their parents, they didn't give it to themselves. Now it's impossible for them to actually properly give it to you because they don't have that skill, they don't have that emotional presence. And I would say, emotional and intellectual presence, they both need to be there at the same time. So now, obviously, if they abandon you, they don't fix, fix is not the right word, but if they don't give them the presence, now it gets translated and transferred onto you, and you take on that pattern of abandoning yourself and not having that presence. And there's, I would say, there's no way out of this than giving yourself that presence, because in the end, at first, yes, maybe a teacher, maybe a guide, maybe a counselor, maybe a therapist can give you that presence, and a lot of times it's the partner. Obviously the first thing that where it goes to is the partner gives you that presence and attention, and that becomes an addiction in and of itself. But in the end, if you don't give that to yourself, you're going to always be chasing that, that that feeling, I would say, that being seen and being felt and needed by from the outside. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a big problem, because you're going to be, constantly afraid of being abandoned, and that leads to all sorts of troubles, being at the wrong job, being with the wrong partner, because you're just so afraid of being abandoned. But now,
Mm-hmm.
where it becomes interesting is if you manage to give yourself that attention, that presence, and you know for 100% certainty that yes, it's sad if a person leaves my life or something leaves, but you can still be with yourself in those moments. That changes the whole game, because nobody now has actual control over you. Maybe if it's some sort of material thing or a connection, there obviously they can use it, but still, you have so much more freedom in your life to choose, actually more, liberately, freedomly, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, but you have a freedom of choice, basically, to now choose better partners, choose better job situations, etc., etc., because that fear is not there. In other words, your presence as a human being for yourself is constantly there, and you know for a fact that it's there. It changes the entire reality of your life, actually. And I think this is extremely important that we, as humans, as adults, especially if we start to even get into relationship, and especially if we start to have babies, have children, we have that emotional presence, because now we have it ourselves. We can grow healthier human beings, younger human beings, with our presence there, actually, because they need it. You know, you most people remember, even, you know, a lot of maybe you don't, but most people remember even needing that presence and guidance, and let's even put the guidance aside a little bit, but emotional presence from the parent that didn't get it because they were off in some emotional turmoil themselves that they couldn't handle. And now it changes the entire game if you can handle it, and you can handle it yourself, and this means you can handle your partner. You can be there for your partner. You can be there for your coworkers. You can be there for your employees if that's the case, or you can be there for your children. You can be there for your animals. You know, doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm. Wow, 12 out of 10 speech.
Yeah, thanks. I just think it you know,
Yeah,
if that is, you know, understood and worked on,
yeah.
it changes everything in that person's life
Well, because
completely.
the way that I see it is like until you actually reach that point where you do realize like it's you, you're essentially sitting in a dirty diaper and you're reacting to people and you're crying and you're I mean this in the most loving, kind way, but you're being a baby. You are being the baby. You are living literally your experience from that young child that was abandoned or didn't get the connection or whatever. So at some point, you really have to look inside and go, do I want to live life as a baby? Do I want to live life as a 3-year-old? No, not really. I want to be my actual age. So then it's about taking off that diaper and really becoming the responsible adult. And there's so much love in that. Like, I feel like I'm sounding harsh, but there's so much love in that when you really, really turn inside and give that love to that little child who you were. Because it's important to remember that that's the past. That's the past. I mean, it matters what happened to you. It doesn't not matter, but it also doesn't matter because what's happening in the present moment is the ultimate thing. Because when you're living in that past, you're not laying in your bed and looking out the window at the sunset and going, wow, that's the most magnificent thing I've ever seen in my life. Or watching the bird, fly by your window and going, holy crap, look at nature. That shit is cool. You're not living in the river of life, feeling all the currents, feeling each experience to the fullest because you're so busy internally reacting. And I also want to kind of go into like the difference between shame and guilt because I think guilt is also a really big motivator for like sadness, I guess, maybe. But so from my understanding, and you can watch like Brene Brown, she's got a really good speech on this. Shame is when you're like, it's everything to do with self, when you have harmed yourself. That's shame. Guilt is when you have harmed someone else. So it's more of an outward thing versus the shame is more of an inward thing. I've done something bad to myself or allegedly. and guilt is more I've harmed someone else. Um Usually the people that we love the most, which is kind of crazy. Um yeah, what's your take on shame and guilt?
I'm going to, I guess, use my mostly agree answer. I mean, you know, shame and guilt are powerful tools of manipulation as well,
Ooh,
and
yeah.
unfortunately, these get used by parents to control children as well. Very often, because like this is the where it gets really thick, and a lot of the people coming to me actually come with the issue of literally their parents, because they were emotionally incapable of taking care of themselves. They put the emotions and the emotional responsibility on the sensitive and very gifted, intuitive people, or a person, or their child, and usually the person coming to me. And in order to achieve that goal of theirs to make the child responsible, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt are always used, and that also kind of like leaves marks on the person themselves. Of, let's say, something is said similarly along those lines, then it triggers that shame or guilt that sometimes, or very often in that specific case, isn't really theirs. It's not even theirs. It's been literally put on them just because the parent wants to control the child, keep the child very close to them even in adulthood, so long, or in order and so long, to take care of them emotionally when they're even older, very old, etc., etc. And that leads to, that shame, that guilt leads to a lot of anger, a lot of rage inside of the child, because, or now as an adult, because it's kind of not theirs. And the bigger thing about this, it's not their job. Like we're talking about this emotional responsibility, and a child is never supposed to take the emotional responsibility for the parent, however old they are. The energy is moving in a, let's say, family dynamic. The energy is moving in a different kind of way from the parent to the child. And that, if that law, in my mind, is broken, it leads to a lot of bad things, because the child is constantly, even if they are intuitive gifted and they can feel and they want to help, they're not supposed to be doing this. And that is one of the reasons people feel life is unfair to them, because it was done to them so repeatedly, and they feel constantly responsible for something they're not responsible actually for. Rage, anger, guilt, shame sometimes, because the guilt and shame has been dropped onto them so much, are just some of the things that are coming out of that. And that's a messy situation. And if you're an adult, out there and listening, remember, it's your emotions, your feelings, and you need to be responsible for those things, not your children. And it's one of the biggest, dirtiest plays I've seen, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
Well, the thing that's popping into my mind is, it might sound a little harsh. I don't know why. Do I feel like I don't, whatever. I feel like my generation, I mean, I guess our generation kind of, I mean,
Okay,
you are
basically.
a little bit older.
I'm a little bit older, more experienced, Okay. How is it, like
um
4 years we have it apart or something? Not that much. Same
Not that
generation.
much. Not that much, but yeah. So same generation. I think our generation is actually a generation that was born of people that didn't know that they could choose to not have children. And perhaps had they known a little bit more, they like would have not.
De- Depending on the situation, I would say a lot to
It's
do
a
with the
it's a
situation.
broad
It's a
statement. It's
broad
a broad
statement.
statement for sure. But
Because,
like
yeah, go
I
ahead.
think the gen like our parents' generation was a bit more on the, get married, have kids right away. That was sort of like the carried on generational thing that was sort of like expected. Like, the grandparents are like, oh, when am I getting grandbabies and blah 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 blah. And it's like, mm, um, I think there was a lot of pressure to have kids, and I think a lot of people would have, had they had maybe a bit more mental dexterity, would have opted to not.
That's a nice way of saying it. If they had more mental dexterity. That's the most polite way of saying it. It's like if they were a little smarter, basically. But like I think that's the case. That's the pattern, definitely. But I just want to say, maybe like adding to it a little bit. I would say personally, I was an accident. Literally, I was an accident. I
Mm.
know I was an accident. There's no hiding it, etc., etc. So I think, especially if these things happen, it's kind of like it's a bit of a different situation, I would say as well, because you
Mm-hmm.
know that same
Yeah.
pressure wasn't there, and other themes come into play. And
I
I know a lot
I
of
was
people who were kind of like accidents in a
I
way.
was also an accident. I really, when I was out in the spirit world, I really had to get my parents together to I had do a lot of fancy footwork to get those two to bring me into the world. So like, I'm not complaining. Not This is not a complaint, but this is like an observation. I think a lot of people were maybe not ready. Would
Totally.
could have chosen differently.
Entirely, just like entirely different decisions.
Yeah.
And but I want to maybe add to this a little bit from the perspective of what you said already. There was like you're not complaining, and you're on planet Earth, and you're doing the work, and etc. etc. But like the one of the things here is we can, very often when we have these experiences, these are quite difficult experiences, so it's easier to go into the complaint, like, why me, why did they have me, like, why, if they didn't know or even want to take care of me properly, like, why did they have me? And I had to personally process a lot of that stuff, because that's a really big part if you're an accident, quote unquote. And like that's a pain right there that you need to sometimes release and need to process. But it's also one of the places of, like, when you're through the grief and when you're through the sadness and you start to scratch your head, it's like, okay, so all of that happened, but I'm still here. Like, why am I still here? And when you go into the space of, like, okay, so I wanted really to have this experience, and also I wanted to grow stronger throughout or through this experience, then you start to see, and then you're like, let's say you get a broader perspective of what this was and how you can actually use this as fuel, because these types of experiences have golden nuggets inside of them, where you can really really start to understand your own strength and the actual, human capacity to come through these things, and actually to grow through these things, and actually to become a lot stronger, a lot
Mm-hmm.
stronger through these experiences, in order to, give the next generation or the future generation a better foundation, a much stronger foundation, so they don't have to go through some of that stuff. And I would also say it gives you, if you use it properly, it gives you like this very very like strong rocket fuel to kind of like, you know make good things happen in the world, and if you use it properly, obviously.
I have a question that's maybe kind of related. Do you, I mean, it's definitely related to my life for sure, but do you find that lately there's been a shift into having less and less patience for people who aren't growing?
Could you elaborate a little bit?
I find, like, I guess my experience lately is like, I'm a lover. I love people. I do. I really, really love everyone from like a very deep place. And I've gotten to this point, I think, in where when I give people all the information, all the things that they need, everything that I can possibly see psychically, energetically, whatever, and they still choose their same life, I'm like, okay, love you, goodbye. Like, no more. That's it. That's my capacity. Like, and then if it's like, as soon as I pull away, they tend to start freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, freak out. I was there, fully there, ready to help you. And like, there's no one specific that I'm thinking of in this moment, but like, yeah, I'm like, I got to put it here. If you don't want it, that's cool. I got to put it here. Um, and it's like, I hope one day you choose differently, but on that one day that you choose differently, like, probably I won't be there.
Uh, I think there are many things that come to mind when you share that story. The first thing is definitely it's like I think there's some sort of emotional responsibility thing going on there. They're most likely not capable of taking that responsibility, and you again, very sensitive, intuitive, want to help again, give them that window or door, and maybe hoping that they will grab it and kind of like pull themselves up and start to take the responsibility. So personally I think you have a good grasp on it because you know when to put that border up. Okay, I'm done. Because like this is the second part, is like if you take on too much of that responsibility, you will be running on empty.
Oh
Literally you will
yeah.
be running on
Oh,
empty, and it's
but
it's,
it's
it's not
it's
good.
it's only lately that I've figured out this boundary. I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm like, do you feel like there's an energy? Like, do you feel like this is across the board with a lot of people right now? That a lot of people are
Yes.
stepping into this, like, okay, the line is drawn. If you're not like sink or swim, buddy, like if you're not gonna go across the line and help yourself and really rise up, like,
A lot of people are noticing and understanding it, and sometimes it's a subconscious, and then this is where it comes out in sometimes anger bursts, and these types of emotional reactions, which I don't want to vilify these, obviously, these
yeah,
reactions,
yeah,
because these are literally, they're showing you that something is
yeah,
happening that is not supposed to be happening, or there's further exploration needed there, and very often it is because you are taking because emotional, material, energetic responsibility for somebody. If you take it too much, again, you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, because a person, especially if it's an adult, they're supposed to take that responsibility, and you as a parent need to teach basically the child to be able to do that. And
yeah,
if they're not being taught that, sometimes they the birds don't want to, or the little ones don't want to fly out of the nest, even because they haven't been shown and taught that emotional and material, all sorts of responsibility. But like right now, if you're asking me, are a lot of people understanding it, I would say yes. And a lot of people are understanding it subconsciously, and then they're I have to say, it's just like a huge part of big portion of people coming to me are, it's very, very similar story of, oh, mother or father wasn't emotionally mature, had these ups and downs, and made me responsible, wanted to keep me close, and it kind of repeats and repeats constantly, and now they're finding it out, and it's hard for them sometimes to break themselves free even from that control, because there's shame, guilt, associated with, because the parent very often makes it you know bad to leave them. It shames. The family is
mm,
important. Your mother is
yes,
important. That
okay,
you
yes,
can't leave, and that's the shame and
this.
guilt that is keeping them there, stuck in
And
that pain.
neurologically, like actually neurologically, neurons that fire together are wired together. So when you have that trigger of like the parent doing that thing or whatever, you that one nerve pathway that you're traveling down lights up the shame, the guilt, the disappointment, the anger, the rage, it's all tied together, all in that one thing. So out of nowhere, your chemical response is like totally your whole brain's on fire with this one event that's just so intricately connected. So what you want to do is
Interesting.
you want to switch that in your brain so that you can fire joy, wealth, abundance, happiness, all those things can fire together so that you are, when the things in your mind are linked, because this is one like mind hack that I sort of found a long time ago. Your memory is based on association. Like, so we can go into all kinds of things about the brain, obviously, as the biggest receiver. That's why there's like no memories like actually in your brain. They're not stored there. It's purely a receiver of energy. But basically, Oh, I totally forgot what I was saying. Oh, I just got so into that. What was I saying?
Like brain and receiving and the neurons connecting and then making a different kind of decision.
Oh, your memory. Your memory is association. So just there, you helped me associate something and I associated it with, oh yeah, right, that was what was going on. So if you're like, if you're in school or whatever, so for example, when I had to remember every single muscle in the body, it was like I would associate the bicep with the tricep and where that attached, so that if I remembered the tricep, then I would remember the bicep too. Does that make sense? Like
Totally.
it was like I always had, and then it would be like, oh yeah, and then I smelled the lavender in the classroom, and then so and so was sitting over there and they yelled something. Like, and so my memory is like it's very good so long as I'm not stressed out. If I'm stressed out, I have like zero memories of anything. But I always remember like from my position of where I was sitting to like how the desk felt to how everything was in that situation. And it's like it's such an access point for memories, is to really be able to go and um be in your body and look around from the perspective that you, because you can remember everything. Like you have that, every single person has that capacity to remember every little thing, which I think is why trauma is so ingrained in our brains and why we so often travel those like um, deeply ingrained pathways, because we have traveled them so often all the time.
That's exactly what happens in that scenario as well that we've been covering here, because you know you're constantly with at least one, most likely with one of the parents, and usually the one who is kind of like emotionally incapable of handling themselves. And if they're constantly feeding that pattern to you and you constantly have to take care of them, you start to believe that's your reality. That's how relationships work. That's how I'm supposed to happen. Then you go into adulthood and you start saving. That start putting the boundaries very very almost non-existent places, and that just pattern continues and continues until you understand it and start breaking it and breaking it and breaking it. And sometimes it takes many
Mm.
tries, but if you keep on like understanding, like, okay, this is not working, I need to put up my boundaries, I need to understand and express clearly what am I doing and what are we doing here, then you can start to
Mm.
see. Because very often, when you start doing that, that's a very very telling situation. When you put that
Mm.
boundary up, you say like, hey, this is what I want, this is important for me to understand, go through, talk to you about, we need to change and shift something, but this is important to me. The reaction that is coming from the other side is very very telling. So if it's very reactive, it's like manipulative, controlling again, then that situation might be playing out again. Because once the person who is um, starting to lose their grasp on that energy source, or emotional crutch source, they usually get into crutched because they, or they get into that reaction because they've been found out, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. And now they
Mm-hmm.
can't even do that.
Exposed.
Exposed, exactly.
Yeah.
And now they can't even do that anymore. And now they have to, it's like sink or swim, or kind of like save their survival uh,
Yeah. Because they were
crutch. Let's put
gaining
it
something. They were
exactly.
gaining something. Yeah, absolutely. They were getting something out of it and using you as a juice box, likely. I'm not a juice box. I'm not
Unfortunately,
a
yes.
Capri Sun.
Capri Sun.
If I
I've
were a
had
juice
that for a
box,
while.
though, I would be a Capri Sun.
What's that trip? Did you guys have a trip in Canada? No,
I don't think so.
really? Okay, we had a trip. That's awesome. Good
We
memories.
had like Kool-Aid jammers. Did you ever have those?
Mm-mm. We didn't have
Oh
Kool Aid.
man, Kool-Aid jammers. Those were like, I think they still have them, probably like packed with sugar and really terrible for you, but loved them. You never had Kool-Aid?
I think not. I think.
Like you never saw the commercial with the Kool-Aid
I think
man that
yeah, I've seen the commercial. I've seen it like some Family Guy did like a joke on
yes,
that. I
they
think.
did. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like something like
Oh
that.
yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally.
But
And
I
Kool-Aid
haven't
like
had. No.
Kool-Aid powder, like if you get it as a powder, it's terrible, tastes disgusting because there's no sugar added. You add the sugar, and like so if you ever make Kool-Aid, like you see how much sugar has to be added. It's pretty intense. Um yeah. Wow. Anyways, wow, there's definitely a lot there that we talked about.
I think it is, but I think for me it's like almost we got to a point where we got to a point of like understanding how important that is and how
Mm-hmm.
important it is to put up those boundaries and you know understand that it might take you time, you know, to build it up. Obviously you have to build up that emotional, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
intelligence before, and then understand what is happening in the situation, if it's
Mm-hmm.
somebody's sucking too much or if somebody's making you responsible, if you're putting too
Mm-hmm.
much, and then you need to put up those boundaries and you know, see how they react, and that tells you a lot.
Totally. Well, I think a couple key things that have happened in my life is that I started asking to see people for who they truly are and asking to see like what's in their heart. And I started to realize like a lot of these really old friendships, not all of them, not all of them. Some people, some people do have really good things in their heart that are in my life. A lot of these old friendships, I realized that they were actually not my friend, they were my frenemy. And they were close to me and they were doing all kinds of things to like manipulate me and wreck my life. Well, not wreck my life, but just, just kind of be a dick. And I started to go like, wow, oh, sorry, I activated Siri.
Hmm.
No. I started to see the truth in all the actions. And I started to really realize that there was a lot of intentional harm being done towards me, like just like totally on purpose. um I mean, obviously I'll never guaranteed get a real like answer from that person. Oh, hey, when you did this, did you mean to? But in my heart I know. And then another thing that I started to do was I started to view all of my family members as my friends. And I started to go, okay, so you're no longer my father, you're no longer my mother, you're no longer my whatever, you're all my friends. Now, how do you treat me? Like, is there mutual respect here? Am I feeling like I'm gaining something out of something good out of this relationship? Like I started to really start to go inside and go, how do I feel in within these relationships? So like, relationship with a cousin or whatever. Would I have an active friendship with this cousin? What is the question that I started asking? I asked about every single person in my family, and a lot of people, it was no. I see them because I feel an obligation to. And then next step, breaking down, why do I feel an obligation?
That's the thing.
And I really don't feel an obligation anymore. Like even these things like Christmas, birthdays, whatever, I'm like, if I don't feel to go, I'm not going.
That's the
If I
brainwash. That's the
if I
brainwash that's been done, unfortunately.
totally,
That's the
right?
bad.
Like family's everything and we have to do everything for. No, you don't.
No.
You create your family that you want and you invite in your spiritual family, and those are the people that have your back nonstop, that you really gain a lot out of talking to. Like they're so, oh man, like the quality of spiritual family that I have at this point is just top freaking notch. And family, love them. Like, and this is again, I love them and I don't judge them. I just watch them as they are. And I watch them I don't want to say tell on themselves, but I watch them tell on themselves. The
Hmm.
words that come out of their mouth, Freudian slips nonstop. It's just like, okay. And I think one of the things is like, as you transition into an adult, especially as you become a cosmic adult,
Especially.
you start to recognize who respects you. And I think that's a huge thing because I started to realize a lot of people in my family do not respect me. Even though I am a full blown adult at this point, and I've actually had one of my family members go, respect is not, oh, what did they say? Respect is not given, it's earned. And I thought, I feel kind of bad for you that you feel that way. Like, that sucks that you feel like you have to earn everybody's respect.
I think you need to earn it only if you have lost it completely.
Exactly.
But like the first should be respect. All creatures or beings, everything at first should be respect until they, misuse or abuse it. Um,
Exactly. And then that's that point where you set that boundary and you move on
but
if
I
it's
think,
not there for
yeah.
you.
But I think I want to touch upon something that's like the brainwash of previous
Oh, the family
generations, the
thing.
family
Yeah.
thing. That's a
Yeah.
crazy, that's been happening in I think almost every country, every family or most families. All the relatives and families and etc. Oh, they're so important. You need to keep in touch and you need to go there and you need to do that. And when I started again, I started also kind of like noticing and looking at this thing from a very, I would say it took me time to understand and resolve and like deep dive into it because it was such a big thing. And I started looking at how are these people actually treating me and how are
Yeah.
they treating each other, how are they showing
Mhm.
up, you know like what is happening here.
Mhm.
So and I started like asking these questions like, should I be with these types of people who treat me and treat others like this? I was like, doesn't sound that good. And then I was started looking at other relationships that I was forming, like with people like all across the world. They were treating me a lot better, showing up for me in a lot of areas in life. And just it was a tremendous eye-opening moment of like, this doesn't like the family, etc. A lot of in a lot of cases doesn't mean shit basically, because they're mistreating you. They're just like very poorly treating you, and you shouldn't be taking that at all. And you should
Mhm.
form better relationship with better foundations, with stronger connections with people who really kind of like, I always like, again, that prove it to you on in the streets of life. Literally, they produce, they are there, they connect, they help, they listen, they talk, they share, they show up, they ask for support, they give support. Let's start with that. How are these people?
Mhm.
Is the family doing that? If not, why are they
Yeah.
so important?
And if the family is doing that, like, lucky you.
Awesome, awesome.
Neat. You nailed it with that one.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, not everyone needs to let go of their family, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
if they're mistreating you, yikes, bro, run.
This is
And I think there's
yeah.
like there's a decision place too, an energetic decision place where once you decide it, you decide this certain thing, the energy breaks and you can let go of that person, and chances are a new person comes in where you will be more supported, you will have all of the things, all of your needs met, but you
Hmm.
have to reach that decision place and break that energy, that wound inside yourself. Usually it's connected. It's well, it's always connected to you.
And I wouldn't, again, put people that are related to by blood or whatever on a separate pedestal, because like we said, if they're mistreating you, why are they still on that special pet? Oh, their family.
Oh, family.
Oh, okay. but they're like
Sick.
being like a real dick and abusing me. So why am I putting them on a pedestal? Oh,
Why am I
because they
giving
give
them?
birth to you, or they,
Yeah.
could whatever gave the
Hmm.
semen to produce you. I mean, guys, that's
You think they, yeah, and oh man, there's so much there. There's so much there with family because but I think one of the best places you can get to is in feeling gratitude for, you know, the sperm donor and the host. You know, gratitude. Thank you. You guys got together, you did the thing, you brought me in, learned all kinds of stuff through the process.
for sure. And I wanna add to it. I'm not saying that all of these situations are bad. Like you said,
Yeah.
like, and it's important to understand. But like the point I think we are making and I'm making is like you shouldn't put them on a different kind of pedestal. They should be still looked at like, so how are they treating me? How are they showing up? Is there mutual, respect,
Mm.
reciprocation? How is this relationship working out?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, what kind of blood you have if the blood is just like bad.
Yeah. Well, seeing the truth and seeing it objectively without emotion.
Yeah. Don't be shamed and guilted into being abused or being in relationships that abuse you just because it was kind of like drilled into your brain
Mm-hmm.
for years and generations and etc etc.
Yeah.
Look at these relationships really.
Because ultimately, you don't owe anybody anything.
Exactly.
Your obligation is just to yourself to take care of you. I mean, being alive is enough for you to be loved. You don't have to do anything to be loved.
Yes. Is that a good segue for the week
I think
ahead?
that's a good segue. Can you tell me what dates? I don't have my
Let's say
calendar.
this. Come on, how
I
how could you? How
know.
could you do this
Oh,
to
for
me?
shame.
So we're looking at the 26th until the 2nd of July. So 26th of June until the 2nd of July. And I can,
How
until you do
26,
your
26?
homework, I can share a little bit
Well,
of
I don't
that.
even have my calendar, so
We're
it's so
just
bad.
super prepared here at Cosmic Adults, but
there's,
just
there's
full
only
trust in the universe.
there's 30 days in June, right?
That is correct.
Okay, got it.
But from an astrological perspective, we have a new moon this week, which is pretty interesting one. I would say, was it in Cancer? I think it was in Cancer. Yes, it is in Cancer. And we have also Neptune is going retrograde. So I think that's like, I almost very often forget about Neptune retrograde because, obviously it happens every year. It's kind of like hidden. It's we've been talking about Neptune quite a bit here. It's those illusions. It's these weird things that kind of are hidden for us. Yes, it's spiritual energies and healing as well, but I think one of the reasons it gets kind of like swept under the rug is because it's Neptune. it's it's hidden and behind the scenes actions as well. So these are two things we need to understand. And when we're talking about Neptune retrograde, especially, it's when the planet is going retrograde, these are usually the times where the most strongest events regarding that planet come. And when we're talking about Neptune, it's seeing past the illusions. Big topic for this week and maybe the next one we should ask. And even yeah, I would say this one and next one are the most strongest. We can put it that way. Seeing past the illusions, like something, the veil almost lifted and being shown to you. Yes, healing I would say is possible as well, but a lot of, because right now where we are in our society, a lot of the negative side of Neptune I think is being shown to us in like scams, is a big part of Neptune as well. So be careful with those things, and be open and kind of like ready to see also past the illusions, and even if something is revealed to you is maybe a little bit you know at first sight or at first glance not so pleasant, then be prepared, and do your best, because Neptune also can pull again the veil over your eyes, like, oh, it's not such a big deal, or oh, blah blah blah, can justify it in your mind. Remember that maybe justification isn't the right thing to do, and actually to see as clearly as possible the thing that are being shown to you is quite important here. And for the new moon, I would say a couple of things with the new moon, because it's happening in emotional Cancer. um, Things can get quite emotional, and because it's a lot to do with family. Cancer is family, so we're talking about this anyway. So a lot of these themes that we've been talking about come to the surface, like how we were nurtured, what do we need for emotional happiness, all these kinds of early childhood topics, and parents and mother energy and nurturing energy. These topics come to the surface to be, at first, new moons at first are about letting go of some hurt, letting go of some emotion, letting go of some, even sometimes relationship, or some form of some relationship, or some way of doing that relationship with a family member this time, or some emotion. And then, understanding that, and understanding what I need, what I emotionally need for, in order to be happy, to have that stronger foundation in life. And then after the new moon happening on the, I think it was 29th, was the 29th, yeah, 29th of June, depending a little bit where you are in the world. But after the 29th, the new cycle can again begin, and the creation, the taking of the action to create more emotional safety, emotional happiness, emotional security, and emotional closeness with family, or the new family will come, or you have to
Totally.
kind of like do it. Let's put it that
And
way.
I want to kind of just add another point here on family. I think one thing I want to say is like, don't underestimate how much your healing heals your family. Like, really, really know that. I mean, I hope everyone can get to a place where everyone's fully perfectly healed and you're living your best life. Don't underestimate everything that you're doing, because the more you heal, the more your family has an opportunity to heal. You heal them by healing yourself. So you don't need to give everything of you to everyone else. You need to give it to yourself, because when people see you shift and change, it gives them hope and opportunity to elevate themselves as well.
Yeah,
We're nodding dogs.
it's like bobbleheads,
Oh.
but it definitely does give you. But like, I want to maybe add, like, if it starts becoming too much of a responsibility for you, like, oh, I have to heal myself because my family, if you take too much on, like, for a second, give yourself a break there as well, because in the end you're doing it for yourself as well, to
Yes,
feel liberation, and to have a free life on this planet.
totally.
And that is, I would say, that's like an extra gain that you can also get,
Party bonus.
like a bonus point thing there.
Party on, Wayne.
Exactly. What's the second guy's name? Garth?
Garth.
Well,
Yeah.
no, and I know my trivia now. I know my trivia.
Mm-hmm. Thank God. So intuitively for this week coming up on the 26th, looks a little dreary with some fatigue. 27th, oh, it feels like a Virgo day, because it's the message I was getting is small things, and obviously Blink 182 starts playing. Dun,
Oh,
dun,
nice.
dun, yeah, of course, right. But really small things, and to me this is a very Virgo thing, and something that I definitely need to balance out within myself, but really looking at the small details, making sure you haven't missed anything, these types of things. And also paying attention to, are any of these small things like bothering you too much? Is it an overreaction? I think that's big. On the 28th, angels. I think we're going to be feeling some divine downloads. So be ready, be open for that if you feel to be. 29th, I was getting integrated. So, take what you've learned to the streets, spend the day being curious, allow yourself to learn way more. Um, the 30th of June. So we're coming up to the end here of the month. And it's kind of like a little like cheering squad from above, is like, you can do it, 100% success rate so far for making it through every single day, so good job. The 1st of July, it was wing it, improvise. I feel like there's going to be a lot of things up in the air. You're going to have to sort of think on your feet, and this is, I think, as a bit of maybe a bit of an ominous warning here, like for the future. Start learning how to think on your feet, start being able to improvise, and use the tools that you have inside, use the materials and things that you have around you in order to do stuff.
So like
Learn how to
be a
improvise.
cat, be a cat.
Be a cat. Be, yes, also be a genius. And
Be
then
a genius. That's the best. That's the
just
best.
do it now. And then the 2nd of July, background noise. So I think there's going to be a lot of distractions, things pulling you, trying to pull you away from your path, trying to like interfere. This could be mother-in-law. That's the first thing that comes into my mind. Mother-in-law, love that energy. I think a lot of people have good mother-in-law for sure, but the typical thing. But yeah, lots of things trying to pull you and distract you. So pay attention to what those things are. Look in your mind. Is this real? Is this for me? What do I need to know? What am I learning? What are my strengths that are going to be coming from this? Boom.
Boom. Mic drop.
Yeah, I'm not going to drop this mic.
Yeah, it's a good mic tone.
Very sturdy.
Take good care of it, actually. Guys, awesome episode. I think one of my favorites in a while.
Mm-hmm. Felt awesome. I hope everyone out there who's listening learned a lot, and just take it in, and maybe you agree with us, maybe you don't, who knows, but just the point is, like, just listen and pay attention, and we're also channeling energy through when we're doing this. So hopefully you've received all the good things that you need to throughout this podcast, throughout the pod. And yeah, you are going into this week with all the things that you need.
Like, share, subscribe.
Follow us on all the socials.
Follow us on social media, guys. Like, share, subscribe. But anyway, little joke there, but do that as well. Appreciate all the people who have been watching us, listening to us. Awesome. And see you again. Talk to you soon.
Right on. Bye.